Welcome to our Tracking to Action series. Today's peer forum is around insights into climate adaptation tracking. We will be using Zoom, so I'm just asking you to, as you come in, please do mute yourself so that we can just listen to one speaker at a time. Please do keep your video on so that we can see you if your connection and bandwidth allows. And it's we're almost as close to face as possible. And we'll be using the chat today in Zoom. So please feel free to use the chat to comment or to also say hello. Now, with that, I am going to hand over to my colleague Farial Rohail, who is the project manager at the Climate Footprint Project at the Climate Group, to introduce and welcome all of you to this peer forum. Farial, over to you.
Thank you so much, Julianne. Good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Farial Rohail, and I'm the project manager for the Climate Footprint Project Phase 2. On behalf of Climate Group and the Under 2 Coalition, I welcome you all to the first peer forum of the second phase of Tracking to Action series. The Climate Footprint Project is an initiative of the Under 2 Coalition, which is the largest global network of states and regional governments committed to reducing emissions in line with the Paris Agreement. The Climate Footprint Project supports state and regional governments to improve their greenhouse gas emission tracking and reduction efforts. This project is funded by German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protection through the International Climate Initiative. So Climate Group is the project lead on this project. Then we also have Ricardo Energy and the Environment, who is the technical lead partner of the project. We also have 5 in-country implementing partners, 1 in each project country. And then finally, we have EdgeFX, who is the lead facilitator of the peer forums on this project. Next slide, please. So in terms of the second phase of the project, we are delivering the project in 5 countries, and we are working very closely with 10 states and regional governments. When we started the second phase of the project in January this year, we undertook a detailed technical scoping exercise to understand the needs of the states. And so even though the focus of this project is to primarily build the capacity of the states in MRV and GHG emission inventories, but some of the requests that were put forward by the states were beyond the scope of these focus areas. For example, some of the states requested us if we could provide them support in climate finance, climate adaptation, vertical integration, and climate action planning. And so we have designed a series of 4 peer forums around these topic areas. Next slide, please. We have 3 main objectives of the project. So the first objective of the project is to deliver 10 technical interventions for the participating states and regions. And this work is led by the Ricardo Energy and the Environment in partnership with the local in-country implementing partners. The second objective of the project is to align regional efforts with the national climate actions. And we aim to integrate this within the technical assistance work and the peer forums. And finally, we will be sharing the lessons learned and the best practices from this project with the wider Under 2 community through the knowledge products and the peer forums. So this is a brief overview of the project. Next slide, please. You can see my contact details on this slide here. And if you have any question on the project, please feel free to get in touch, and I'll be more than happy to get back to you. Thank you so much. I'll now hand over to Julianne.
Thank you so much, Farial, for that warm welcome on behalf of the Climate Group and the Under 2 Coalition. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the peer forum in a minute and what we're hoping to do today. Before I do, or as you're listening, I also wanted to ask you to please, in Zoom, if you can add your region or your organization to your name. I think you can rename yourself by clicking on your video or on your little there's 3 dots, and you can rename just to add the organization and state or region. That would be great. Thank you. So yeah, today's peer forum is really a space. It's designed by all of us together to inspire you to start exploring different approaches to tracking progresses around adaptation efforts, and especially at a state and regional level. And we're hoping that all of this kind of is in service of accelerated climate action. So today's peer forum is an opportunity for participants, for you who joined us, to hear about new approaches and different tools or frameworks. And we've got 3 lightning talks, 3 speakers who are joining us to share a little bit more. We're also hoping to hear about what are some of the emerging practices at state and regional level or in organizations, and what are also some of the challenges around adaptation tracking. We're hoping that this is a space for you to gain some insights and practical ideas on how to track adaptation actions. And really think about, well, what might be a first step to action or an experiment, or you know, a first step in that direction to tracking some of the adaptation efforts at our own context. We've created this as a space to be quite interactive as well. So we're hoping that we're kind of coming to you, and you'll have an opportunity to unmute yourself a bit later as well and get into a conversation. So today, my name is Julianne Neer. I am from EdgeEffects, and I'll be facilitating and kind of moderating through the peer forum. You've met my colleague Varial already from the climate group, and then we're very excited to be joined by 3 contributors. We have Roxana Borges, who's the resilience research lead at the Race to Resilience campaign, with Mamadou Touré, who is a climate change and territorial development expert from the region of Gossas in Senegal. And we also have Christoph Youngfleisch with us, who's the founder and CEO of Yapo Solutions. So we'll be hearing a little bit more from them in a while. Before that, let me just explain to you how we want to spend our time together today. We're right now in the welcome and check-in, which is a space for us to kind of get to know each other, understand what today is about. We'll then come to the lightning talks, and the lightning talks is, as it says in the title, it's a flash of lightning, hopefully a bit of inspiration, a bit of an idea. It's fast. So we'll hear from our 3 speakers who are giving their lightning talks to maybe give us a bit of a new insight from their perspective and experience. I'll be taking you afterwards through a bit of guided reflection, which is just at an individual level for you to think, okay, what does all of this mean to me, and what am I taking away from this? And we're then hoping to have about 25 minutes in small breakout rooms, where you will be able to come off mute and just have a conversation with your peers and colleagues in the room, and talk about your own experiences of adaptation tracking and what approaches you've used for collecting adaptation data. And then we'll do a very quick checkout and feedback, and that is how we're proposing to spend 90 minutes together. So I hope that resonates and sounds exciting. With that, I'm going to turn to you, actually. So I would love to hear who's in the room. And so I would like to invite you to please use the chat and write in the chat your name, the country or state or region you're calling from, and what you are hoping to learn about adaptation tracking. So please, looking forward to, this is now the point where everybody goes, well, really quiet. I'm the only one speaking, but this is the point where everybody goes really concentrated and starts typing. So please, I'm looking forward to reading. Great, I can see this. Christoph, you knew what was coming, so you're the first one to say hello already. And we've got Melissa from Regions Adapt as well, which is a network of regions working on adaptation. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. All right. I'll let everybody use their speedy writing fingers. Seems like we've got a room full of people, which is exciting. Oh, fantastic. Deepanjana from West Bengal, from India. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Susanna from Catalonia. Now everything's coming in at once. Looking forward to learning about measuring progress and adaptation. Hopefully we'll get to speak a bit about this. We've got Lise from the Western Cape, which is really exciting. And you're already saying, so Lise was saying she's already struggling with how to track progress around adaptation and developing indicators. So hopefully we'll hear a bit more today around that. And I can see some heads nodding. So Lise, it sounds like you're not the only one who's struggling with that. We've got Natalie as well, Natalie from Lower Saxony in Germany. So really nice to have a mix of different, I saw Catalonia, Germany, the Southern Cape in South Africa. We've got from India somebody calling. That's really good to hear. So hopefully, yeah, take your questions and the hopes. We've got Ian calling from Bonn, who works for the UNFCCC. So fantastic, thank you for joining as well. Lamine from the Gambia, which is great to have you here as well. Hoping to learn more about adaptation, how to implement a system in the North Bank region. So again, hopefully bring those questions and your learning hopes and the struggles that you have at the moment, bring them into this conversation, take them into your breakout rooms as well, and make it a space that's useful for you. So I'm hoping that, yeah, you enjoy the conversation, that we can all be together here. Well, nice to have Kate, nice to have you back from the Scottish Government. Great. Now, with that, knowing who's in the room, I think it's time that we maybe move to our lightning talks. So I'm really excited to have our speakers here with us today. And as I said earlier, lightning talks is an opportunity to have a very quick intervention from a speaker, to have something that illuminates a little bit, that gives us maybe a new idea or a new thought, shines a light on a specific topic. And I'm really pleased that we have 3 speakers with us today. We will go through each lightning talk one at a time. If you do have any questions to the speakers or any comments, please feel free to use the chat, or you can also use the reactions if you want to give them a thumbs up or kind of celebrate what they say. Please feel free to do that. But with that, I'm going to turn to our first speaker, Roxana Borges, who's the Resilience Research Lead at Race to Resilience. And yeah, and Roxana's research is focused on the co-production of knowledge and the science, policy, and society interface, and how governance in such areas as adaptation and resilience to climate change and glaciers and water and energy fields. She's been a contributing author to the Chapter 2 on high mountain areas, on the IPCC special report on the ocean and cryosphere in the changing climate. So I'm really happy that we've got you here today, Roxana. And I'm going to hand over to you to tell us a little bit more about why tracking is so important and for resilience.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will try. I will try. Yeah, thank you. Well, next, please. This is Race to Resilience. Race to Resilience is a global campaign led by the UN high-level champions. The high-level champions have 2 main campaigns. Race to Zero focuses on mitigation, and Race to Resilience focuses on adaptation. Yeah, I'm part of the technical secretariat. I'm a researcher at the Center for Climate and Resilient Research, based in Chile, and we are leading all the metric framework of the campaign. Okay, this campaign emerged due to the urgency to escalate, accelerate, and deepen the effort to take just and transformative climate actions of non-state actors. So it focuses on non-state actors. And the main goal is increasing resilience of 4 billion people living in vulnerable communities. So that is a big goal that we have. Next, please. So why do we need a metric framework? Yeah, what we know is that there is a need for measuring and monitor how different and heterogeneous actors and communities are progressing in the effort of building resilience, and identify opportunities, gaps, and lessons learned to accelerate climate actions in this global arena. But there has been no consensus on how to achieve it. So there are many efforts to do it, but not a particular consensus. We know that because it has been a discussion during the COPs. Last COP in Glasgow, there were many seminars about that and how we can measure. So this is a big challenge for all of us. And the framework, the Race to Resilience framework aims to monitor the commitments and progress of the partners and their members. So we are a campaign in which partners are accepted, and when they are accepted, they have to commit something, and we'll show you more about that. We also aim to help leverage and disseminate insight between the partners and to external stakeholders on best practices and lessons learned, and identify solutions. Yeah, report advancement of the NSA community toward building resilience, and to contribute to an informed international debate on the definition of a global goal on adaptation, on methodology for the monitoring and evaluation of adaptation, as much for parties and not party actors. This is key for the global stocktake. Yeah, next, please. So this, I cannot present deeply maybe what is the framework about, but I will try to show you the general idea. Yeah, the Race to Resilience ultimate goal is to promote actions that may foster an increase in the resilience to climate change. Okay, so we are looking for increasing resilience. The metric framework can help us understand how our partners' initiatives and their members' efforts are advancing toward this 4 billion goal. And for this, we use a set of quantitative and qualitative metrics. On your left side, there is the quantitative part. These quantitative metrics seek to understand the direct impact on different kinds of beneficiaries. They are focused on understanding how many people, companies, actors, cities, regions are more resilient. So this is the goal of the campaign. So 4 billion, and how can we reach that 4 million? Yeah, in which the partners are pledging the number of people, companies they want to achieve by 2030, and then reporting their outcomes toward that pledge. Yeah, but we know that that is not enough. So we cannot say that an initiative is increasing resilience just because they are working on a community itself. So what we have is to have a set of qualitative metrics. Yeah. In order to understand how they are increasing resilience by making an impact on key conditions that we call resilient attributes. And these are conditions recognized by the literature for fostering resilient and empowering transformation. So we took these two parts, the one more quantitative in which we want to know the number, but then the qualitative part in which we want to know how they are increasing resilience to those communities. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So the campaign accepts different kind of initiatives that can have different kind of beneficiaries. Some initiatives are directly impacting on individuals. Another may directly impact companies, cities, regions, and natural systems. In all these other kind of beneficiaries, the ones that are not individuals, the partner initiatives have to report expected indirect beneficiaries in terms of individuals. So because our goal is on individuals mainly, so that we can measure that indirectly. Yeah. We also want to know how they are distributed in the key communities of the campaign, urban, rural, and coastal. Yeah. We will get direct metrics on all these dimensions, but also indirect metrics in terms of how the initiatives qualitatively are building or increasing resilience by describing how the actions contribute to these 7 resilient attributes that you can see at the end: assets, flexibility, social collaboration. I don't have time to explain all of them, but those are these emerge from a work that we did with the methodological advisory group. Is one of our advisory body that is conformed of researchers from around the world, the Stockholm Resilience Center, the University of Maryland, different research organizations. So we are working together on building all this framework. Okay, next, please. So there is a pathway through the race. We don't expect all the initiatives have the capacity now or in the stage in which they can tell us all the outcomes they are having in the ground. So there is a pathway to the race, and we call it the 4 Ps: pledge, plan, proceed, and publish. But first, to apply. So the initiative have to apply, and when they are accepted, they have to pledge. This means to set a target for resilient actions. Then the initiative has to draft a clear and evidence-based plan to take actions toward that pledge, and then proceed. It means to take effective and immediate actions toward that pledge. So they have to have a commitment, and then to present us the plan to that commitment, to present us how they are proceeding to that, and then to publish validated outcomes. Next, please. And the last slide. Yeah. But this effort presents many challenges and lessons learned. So efforts to track mitigation, for example, are relatively straightforward, at least a conceptual level, because mitigation finally of greenhouse gases, can be measured in terms of the quantity of carbon or other emissions. But in contrast, resilience is context specific and also tends not to be directly observable. So it's the same with adaptation. So it's super context dependent. Therefore, it's difficult to know the baseline in order to compare between past and present, to say this community is resilient, or it's difficult to attribute the impact of actions on beneficiaries until a community is directly exposed to a climate event. So what is the approach we use? Because we don't have a baseline, it's super difficult at a global level to have a baseline. How was the state of a community before, and then to analyze the impact of a initiative on the ground. So what we did is to assess increased resilience by proxy. That is by saying how it sets changes on properties that are commonly associated with resilience, and so those properties are the ones that we call resilient attributes as key conditions to foster resilience and empower resilient driving transformation. Okay, so we can identify at least 3 types of challenges: conceptual, methodological, and practical. In conceptual terms, there are multiple frameworks on resilience, a lack of a clear goal or adaptation of resilience, although now I think that the process has been, we have been finding some agreements on this. A lack of a robust framework of on increased resilience. This mix of between quantitative and qualitative impact, we think that we cannot just talk about quantitative aspect, resilience and adaptation as well. A fundamental part is the qualitative part, the how the communities are more resilient and how the initiative in our case are building resilience. Okay, in methodological terms, there is the resilient actions are super heterogeneous. We cannot have a baseline. We cannot have a baseline of of all the communities around the world, or at least the vulnerable communities. There is in the aggregation, and there is a risk of double counting. We are trying to approach that in different ways, but we know that it's impossible at some point. So we have to minimize the risk of double counting, but we cannot avoid it completely. So the only way is to have all the exactly people or individuals that communities are impacting, and that is, it's possible, but we don't have the money to do that, okay? And then impact validation. So how can we validate the impacts of the communities? Because also we don't have the resources to evaluate each community and to evaluate how the initiatives are impacting each of the communities that they are impacting. And finally, and just focus on, because I know the time is flying, the last is progressiveness. So we know that we cannot, every tracking, we have to analyze and to measure the progress. So it's a process. And we cannot say that in some point there is a number, a figure. So it's a process, and we have to understand this. In our case, to have these 4 billion people by 2030, it's a process in which we are building resilience, and all the initiatives that are partner of the campaign, they are contributing to build resilience all together. That is, thank you very much. And the last slide is my email, and Marco Billy email, that is the metric lead of the campaign. Also a researcher at the Center for Climate and Resilient Research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roxana. A huge round of applause, and yeah, thank you for sharing the insights and lessons learned and some of the challenges that you've been observing. I'm going to not comment anything else, but just let everybody sit with that. And I'm going to go to our next speaker, to Mamadou Touré, who's a climate change expert and territorial development expert from the Departmental Council of Gossas in Senegal. Mamadou has nearly 20 years of experience working with local authorities, NGOs, and United Nations organizations. He actively collaborates with research institutes and university laboratories. Particularly is interested in the framework of climate change mitigation and adaptation processes. And the region of Gossas has been working with Regions Adapt and Regions 4, who's one of the official partners of Race to Resilience when it comes to regions and adaptation. And Regions Adapt helps to coordinate the participation of regional governments such as Gossas in the UNFCCC initiatives. And they've kindly put us in touch with Mamadou, so we're really pleased and very grateful that we have you here today. Mamadou, you're going to share with us a little bit more of the regional perspective. Roxana said it's very contextual, so I think we're diving right into the context. So Mamadou, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Juliana. Hello to everybody. I think that you hear me well, so I'm very glad to be with you and to talk about our commitments on climate change. As you see on the pictures, Gossas is in the center of Senegal and with Sahelian climate. So it is 6 municipalities and about 100,000 people. And as you see also, Gossas is very weak on forestry and other green lands. Next, please. So, and in the context, climate change poses a threat to sustainable development and hinders efforts to reduce poverty. In the department of Gossas, it is manifested by a multiplication of climate episodes like floods, droughts, heat waves, high winds. The consequences are often catastrophic, such as food insecurity, increasing scarce access to water resources, lower agriculture productivity, depletion of biodiversity, decline in human and animal health, land degradation, intensification of deforestation. Next, please. And the CDP platform for adaptation to climate change help us to implement a community resilience program. And in the same time, we joined the Regions 4 and Regions Adapt, which gave us access to the CDP platform. Just during the year 2016 and 2021, GOSAS was able now to measure our efforts in terms of adaptation. Next. What benefits we have since incorporating adaptation tracking? The monitoring of adaptation projects has been made effective through the CDP platform in the following areas, like the data on the number of inhabitants affected by climate change, the number of women and young people who was working to adapt on adaptation, hectares of forests reforested, the number of improved stoves distributed, the number of drinking water supplies and water sources constructed, and number of drain shops. It is one of KPI that we can follow with the CDP platform. Today, the data from GOSAS is taken in account in our national determined contribution of Senegal, and also national and international partners have a better understanding of the ambition of GOSAS. Next. And in terms of recommendation, we strongly recommend that other regions join the CDP platform to enable them to have performance indicator, the KPI that I said before, as part of their commitment to adaptation. Also, a second recommendation is capacity building of actors. It is a prerequisite to better inform the data of which the system needs to perform well. And all this has been made possible by the next Regions Adapt, as I say, and Regions 4. And Regions 4 is a part of the leading network for regions and adaptation. And since 2016 also, Regions Adapt supports more than 70 regional governments from 28 countries promoting a collective message. And Regions 4 offer capacity building, offer high international visibility, enhanced cooperation and engagement with the United Nations system. And all is coordinated data analysis and monitoring as official partner of race resilience and CDP. Donc, I just say thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mamadou, for sharing the experience of GOSAS with us. And yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe diving a little bit deeper into the conversation when we're in the breakout rooms. I'd love to hear a bit more. Fantastic. Now, one of the last speaker that I would like to come to is another colleague. We've got Christoph Jungfleisch here, who's the founder and CEO of Yapu Solutions. Christoph has built his career working with SME financing and SME banks. And in early 2017, he co-founded the Germany-based Yapu Solutions, and he's been shaping various different aspects of the company, from the business model over some of the client pipeline to production of some of the specific Yapu, some of the specifications that Yapu promotes around climate smart financing globally. And currently, some of the software platforms and some software solutions they are working with are being introduced in 11 countries across Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa, with over 20 microfinance institutions. So you can already hear in Christoph's biography that we're moving slightly to see actually there's a really big link between climate adaptation tracking and also financing. So we're really interested to hear a little bit more from him, how he's experienced that linkage, and what some of the benefits might be for states and regions. So Christoph, over to you.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you, Roxana and Mamadou. I think that's a perfect floor. I feel a bit exotic here. So I clearly have a private sector beyond also
Chris,
women.
I'm sorry to
between the public and private sectors. Yes.
So I'm sorry to come in. I can just. Yeah. I think it's breaking a little bit. I was just about to.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It happened. This is the world we live in at the moment. I was just about to ask. Maybe it helps with the video off.
Yes, I hope it is better now. Can you hear me?
I think a little bit. Yeah. Give it a time.
That would be so bad now. I try to speak slowly. Give me a hint if the problems persist. Yeah.
This sounds well now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I was just saying I feel a bit exotic. I'm coming with a clear perspective on the private sector, but all circling around a base principle, which is that we need a different type of public-private collaboration and partnerships. So at YAPU, we focus on software solutions for financial institutions. We think financial institutions can be agents of change. We can gather data from administrative records, and we can monitor different types of customers, especially the most vulnerable ones in the MSME finance space. Last year, together with CCAFs from the CGIAR group and with GABA Capital, a fund manager out of Spain, we have initiated the initiative under the Race to Resilience, which we call Scale for Resilience. There we are targeting 3 million smallholder farmers to be served specifically for resilience finance by over 100 financial institutions, investors, and fed by data coming from research institutes. Julian, please. Now we will see how it is to say next, please, all the time. I'm so sorry. Yeah, just quickly where we are coming from. It's basically we are working across 2 continents. We are based in Berlin with the headquarters, but we have office in Quito and in Kigali in Rwanda, focusing on providing data solutions and software solutions which enable financial institutions to actively build into their processes at least, let's say, the assessment of climate risks. And then we will see on the next slide how they can embark on a path to resilience and resilience finance. So how can we engage the private financial sector? It all starts first with the disclosure of climate-related financial risks. So we have 2 main dimensions. First is really looking at gross climate risk, what we call gross climate risk. So we only look at exposure and sensitivity, exposure to specific climate threats and sensitivity of a specific economic activity to these climate threats. So that's very obvious when we are talking about smallholder farmers, which entirely depend on climate for their production. Then we have sensitivities attached to these crops, for example. But this can also be applied to economic activities outside of the agricultural and animal farming industry. So for small shops and for transportation providers, small constructing companies, etc. So within that, we have loan evaluation, where we look at climate threats from a probabilistic angle. Means we look at historical climate data. We can then sort of project these into the next 12 to 24 months We have certain probabilities for specific climate threats to materialize, and we can have a risk assessment at the moment of client or loan evaluation. Next, please. And then, of course, it gets more interesting once we are looking at portfolios of outstanding loans. We have sufficient climate data available. We can draw these from NASA or ESA, different satellite data, which can be built into models. And I can look at outstanding loans as long as I know where they are basically dispersed. I can attach specific climate risks that have materialized in a certain period. So, for example, what we do is mostly what climate threats have materialized within the last 4 weeks. And then I can have expected default risk per loan and for portfolios based on this and based on outstanding amounts. Next, please. It gets already a bit more sophisticated, or quite more sophisticated, once we try to factor in adaptive capacity. So we need taxonomies, and this is where the alignment first comes in between the public and the private sector. We need taxonomies to start to measure adaptive capacity. So that's the existence or the application of certain cultural practices in agriculture. It can be storm shutters for small shops in the Caribbean and similar activities. And we put these into taxonomies as YAPU and as Scale for Resilience. We are working on it. We have our own taxonomies. Technical criteria are verified, and of course, all the safeguards are checked and always a check against specific objectives. Next two, please. The same applies. I do this on a loan evaluation level, means in specific point of time, or I do it over time, looking at portfolio performance and specific risks that are in my portfolio. Okay, this is the disclosure side. Yeah. Now I have not acted upon this data yet. The first step then really is in the realm of promotion of adaptive capacity, of adaptation. Really, we react upon the risks we identified. Usually this is being done by business continuity plan and contingency plans. But of course, that is working out bad performing loans. Yeah. All steps, and this is the angle why working with the financial sector are of course accompanied with data gathering. So financial institutions visit customers, they talk to customers, they assess the risks, they need to document all and every dot of that. So we can use this data, and we can use this data so that it can be used for national adaptation planning, it can be used for specific initiatives in a country or in a region. Next, please. It gets much more interesting once we go further down on the progress ladder or on the path to resilience by having financial institutions proactively promoting green loan products and enabling continuous learning in order to understand adaptive capacity. And these institutions cannot only channel funding, they can also channel information services and capacity building services. So there is more than just the funding. We need to build markets, we need to build understanding, and we need to build capacity. And we can work with the financial sector in order to do that. Next, please. More or less the last step before the ultimate step is really okay. We start and at least as YAPU, we are now building our first artificial intelligence in order to build recommendation systems. So I visit a vulnerable individual that is asking for loan. I look at what adaptation measures are actually being applied. And the AI will help us. We are just starting. The AI will help us to say, well, look, the next good step would be you have a water reservoir, you have a solar pump, you have a drip irrigation system. If you now apply agroforestry approaches plus some organic fertilizer, this will increase even more your yield, because we are always focusing, of course, on one hand, the results for the individuals, and on the other hand, the resilience of the ecosystems which provide crucial services. And finally, and this is the link to, I would say, most of the audience here, then we need an alignment in terms of adaptation taxonomies with the NDCs and NAPs in different countries and regions. Why is that at the end? And no offense, but we're already working with established taxonomies. The institutions can work with it. What we face usually in different countries and in different regions as that we don't have a regulatory framework, which makes it very difficult to, let's say, force financial institutions, if you would like to use that term, to move in a specific direction. So I think the earlier we can have this alignment, the better. So it could also be step 3, it could maybe even be step 1, and in the future, I'm expecting it will be step 0. So it will be the basis of everything. Next, please. So just a couple of impressions. This is, of course, what we have done as YAFU. Most of these institutions you are seeing there are part of the Scale for Resilience. We are active in Senegal, for example. I think Mamadou, we spoke briefly about it. We are active very much in Ecuador, in Colombia, and other parts of Latin America and Africa. What we do is we train financial institutions to gather the right data according to the taxonomies, integrate the assessment of climate risk at least at the gross climate risk level into their daily processes. And we provide them usually the consulting to act upon it, because this is what we ultimately need. And this is what, at least at YAPU and at the Scale for Resilience, we are working and living for. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christoph, for sharing your insights, and also a few other mechanisms for tracking and collecting data, actually, and this link to between finance and adaptation. Now, I think a big round of applause to all 3 of our lightning talk speakers. Normally the whole room would break out now. Online it's a little bit harder, but I really appreciate you taking the time, all 3 of you, to join us here today. I am going to ask us as participants now to just think a little bit more about what you've just heard. And if you do have a pen and a piece of paper next to you, feel free to take it out, because I'll ask you to write down a sentence. And this is part of just a reflective writing exercise. It's very short, but it just helps you maybe to kind of, pull together your own reflections and your own thoughts. So I will start reading out a sentence to you in a minute. If you start writing the sentence, and then just keep your pen writing. Don't think much about it, just write whatever comes. Just keep your pen moving. So the first sentence starts, adaptation tracking could help me. So if you just start writing on your Hi, welcome back. I hope you had a good conversation. We'll hear in a minute from everybody. We'll just wait for the other rooms to close and then come back here. Hi, welcome back, everyone. I hope you've had an interesting conversation. I can see smiling faces, nodding faces. That's always nice to hear and see. I can see more cameras, which is also exciting. I can see more faces, which makes me very happy. We've got another 10 minutes together before we close the peer forum, and I'm dying to hear what you all talked about. So I'm going to go around each room just to hear back from one person, just one approach that you talked about, maybe around collecting data, what's worked, what's good, what's been successful. And I'm going to start going to room 2, and I'll ask Jebby to come in a minute, or somebody from your room, Jebby. I think you were in a room with Christoph together, Ian, Joao, Marie-Claire, and Mutara. So yeah, Jebby, over to you. What did you take away?
Yeah, and also thank you to everyone for joining this session. It's been really interesting. And we had a great breakout room. We had Mutahara from Jammu and Kashmir, and she sort of really painted a vivid picture for us on the sort of various challenges they're facing there as a region. We also had Ian from the UNFCCC, who talked to us about the data that they are collecting at the global level, but you know, it has been sort of largely mitigation focused, and I think this is a similar sort of journey that the climate group's been on, where we've been sort of heavily mitigation focused. It's been really good over the last year in particular to kind of be working closely with partners at Regions 4 and start looking at things like adaptation, resilience, loss and damage. But with that comes the challenges. It's you know, not easy to define. It's very kind of context specific, and therefore the data that's collected, it's I mean, in Ian's words, it's still unsophisticated. It's very hard to kind of distill. So there's a lot of work that kind of needs to be done to kind of make it useful. And then we also have Christoph in the room, and we heard earlier from Christoph on the work that he's doing on the sort of adaptation finance side and the data that they're collecting there. So I'll leave it there, but thanks to everyone again for joining.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And it sounds like you, I mean, it brings the international element of these peer forums. It sounds like you had a very, different context that you heard about. Farial, I'll come to your room next. I think you had also quite a full breakout room. You had Roxana, Lamine, John, Fairuz and Dipanjana in your room. So please tell us what's the one approach around collecting data and adaptation information that you took away.
Thank you so much, Julianne. So yeah, we had a very diverse group. So we had John from Northern Ireland. We had Feroz from the JIDA team from Gauteng province in South Africa. And we also had Dipanjana, who is from West Bengal, India. So I think mutually we agreed that if we could bring in Feroz, who could share her approach, because I think it would be quite insightful for our project estates, because we have 2 project estates from South Africa. So if I can please call in Feroz to share her approach. Feroz, are you happy to come in?
Yes, good afternoon, colleagues. From our 5-year strategy that has been updated, which is called the Gauteng City Region Overarching Climate Change Response Strategy and Action Plan. From that, we have an implementation tool, an implementation plan implementation plan tool, which is used to then to bring that action plan into action, so that we can monitor the various projects that's being undertaken by the various provincial departments within Gauteng, as well as at local level, local municipal level. And the type of categories that we have within that template is basic things like the 12 response programs are listed there. So an example of that is natural resources, and we have health and energy as one of the response programs. And within each department or municipal area or municipality, they have different projects responding to those response programs. So then that's listed onto the template, and then they report in terms of project title, project type, intervention description, indicator, the intended outcome of their project, the estimated annual carbon emission savings or offsets. You also then list basic things like the lead organization, the funding organization, the funding partner, and then also what's the status of the project, is it active, and then also the start and end of the project, as well as the project manager and the estimated budget range for that project as well. And also, so those are to name but a few. And then we also say per financial year, because we work according to financial years, for example 2021-22 financial year, since this project is over a 5-year period. And then also we have like things like information sources like progress evidence, so that you can link it to a an authentic source. So we gather this information through various platforms like bilateral engagements, if that can be virtual or physical engagements with the various departments, or through our quarterly climate change forum, which is an established forum we meet on a quarterly basis with provincial and local government. And this template, although it's specifically tailored for the strategy, it also further feeds into a more comprehensive, climate change project register, which accounts for adaptation as well as mitigation projects across all sectors.
Yeah.
And that further feeds into a national a national database where they also monitor, so that they can, get an overall overview of the number of adaptation and mitigation projects within, within Gauteng and across all the provinces.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Fairuz. That's really interesting. That's great to hear and have that very contextual example of adaptation, tracking and collecting data. We've got a couple more minutes and I'm just going to use them very quickly. So Rav, maybe I can come to your room, just maybe to your one very quick approach that stood out.
Surely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So we really had a great room. We had Liz from the Western Cape government, Kate from the Scottish government, and Mauro from COSAS. And one key thing which we highlighted in our room was that everybody was having some kind of issue in collecting adaptation-related data. Well, we have a very good, clear framework for collecting mitigation-related data, emissions reduction-related work happening. For adaptation, we are normally kind of, like per se, we will do something similar, but it's very different. So one is the time frame thing, which everybody kind of agreed to, that we cannot, just collect quarterly data or say 5-year or 1-year data, because it's like a long-term thing. Number one. Number two, another important thing was that a lot of our regions are actually kind of interlinked. They've interlinked their work with the national government, with the national adaptation policy. So that actually presents a good avenue where a lot of work can be done in terms of doing some good adaptation tracking at the regional level. And how do you solve such things, which we have kind of highlighted in the room, was that like in the Scottish government, it's kind of very much dashboard based, I would say. So these dashboards do give a good opportunity to keep a track on the work happening. And one important thing which lastly I'd like to say, that which Mamadou had kind of highlighted, was, with better networking between such partners, we can actually improve the knowledge base and address this concern. So that's it from our side.
Great, fantastic. And TJ, I'm going to come to you. I think you're in the last room. Can you give me a 30-second kind of approach, or brief soundbite from your conversation?
Of course I can, Julianne. We had representatives from Ghana, Mpumalanga, UNFCCC, and we also had Regions 4. And I think the main kind of themes that came out was, from the regions, the need to kind of connect national priorities and kind of, I think the word was used, cascaded down to subnational level. And also, I think, more clarification on what and how these indicators may look like, and more support in the metrics. There was some reference to Christoph's presentation, and I think, that kind of, the need is evident, but the technical side and the support around that, and I think just understand the latest and the greatest from adaptation and metrics and indicators.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to all of you for these breakout rooms, the feedback. I think it links really closely to our next peer forum. We've got a peer forum on the 17th of August, which is about engaging multiple levels of government in state climate action solutions. And so we hope to see you again there, or maybe in a different constellation. And I'm going to stop sharing the screen now so they can kind of come off mute, give a big wave and say goodbye to each other in whatever language works for you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for our 3 speakers, for the team for doing this. And as you leave, please fill in the feedback for a survey for us. When you leave the Zoom room, there'll be a feedback survey popping up on your screen. So please leave us some feedback so that we can learn as well, because it's all about learning. So I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Oh.
Bye. Thank you.